Hello, everybody, and welcome. I don't know why it was blocking Uwu. That doesn't seem like anything even kind of worth blocking, but you know. Again, I don't know how exactly uh, Streambot chat, whatever the devil it is, got set on like 1650 Puritan grandmother level, um, but it blocks everything. It's like I don't think that's correct. Every time I see it blocking something, I just imagine this woman in like colonial garb, uh, with like a very stern look, like she's never enjoyed anything in her entire life, going, I don't think that's proper. Well, it's like once I allow something through, it will allow it afterwards. But every time something new pops up, it will. Oh yeah, I gotcha. I gotcha. What's up, late bloomer? How's it going? Viper's good to see you as always. Foggage, puns right off the bat. We'll take them. It probably tags words against the number of times messages have been collectively reported across the site or something. That makes sense. It's probably got some sort of rolling algorithm where it sort of taps into things that have been banned from other locations, and it says like this is questionable material. So yeah, that makes sense. That's probably the way that I would program it if I had access to the back end of all of these things. So, but I still think of it as a very strict Puritan grandmother. Hello, everybody. I hope you all are doing well. I will be honest and say that I don't actually feel that great. I have been sort of not necessarily sick, but just unwell. That might be the better word. I've had some friends that have had some health scares, and I just got word today that one of my friends from up in Tuscaloosa, that's maybe 5 years older than I am, had a stroke today. So it's just kind of put a bit of a damper on things. And I had a friend just over the weekend who had some rather sudden healthcare issues and had to get rushed to a hospital. And that whole reflecting on mortality kind of thing can really catch you, especially when you're thinking, I'm doing fine. Yeah, it's a bunch of weird stuff going on, and I've been doing research on some really fundamentalist interpretations of historical sites, and honestly, it makes me so angry that people are willing to suspend disbelief on archaeological data in order to basically salve their particular view of history, and that really irks me. I haven't necessarily enjoyed doing the legwork of research for this, because if I'm going to write a paper that is going to combat their particular viewpoints, I have to then, go through all their viewpoints. Yeah, Vipers, that definitely does suck. What's up, KP? Hope you're doing okay. I need to deliver something to you. I don't know when we can arrange that. But I have a big pretty for you. I got a Gundam kit in today, and KP also has a Gundam kit in it, so need to get him a Gundam. What's up, Tropical? Good to see you. Hope you've been doing well. You have a few customers who tell me every time they're half dead, they're ooh, yeah. You saw a Gundam Lego minifigure the other day, or today. Gundam Lego minifigure today. Huh. Was it like a minifigure, but it was of a Gundam? Are you saying that I'm being extra because I'm concerned about my friends and faced with the mortality of reality? Uh, that's interesting. Huh. I've never seen one of those before. Was it custom made or was it like actually some sort of like officially licensed Lego minifigure of a Gundam? I don't need to buy things. Oh, now I'm going to have to buy things. All right, let me see if I can let's go over here and let's oh no. That's not right. I need to do Lego. Oh no. Oh, things that I have to buy. Oh, look, they're out of stock. Rats. Oh, they're pogos. Those are still really ridiculously cute, though. I bet they make them in China. Oh, he's got the little shoulder rocket. Look at that guy. Okay, yeah, that was... Yeah. What's up, Lumpy? Everybody needs to go follow Lumpy for more delightful conversation and Minecraft building. Ethereal Complication says, who are the barbarians? Non-Romans said, Romans being pillaged by non-Romans. Pretty much, yeah, right. So, Ethereal Complications, the barbarians were the people that were generally considered by various empires or political entities to be those of lower culture levels. Not culture, that's not correct. Those of lower civilization levels. So even in Japan, like we're going to talk about tonight, the original title of shogun, right? And we're not going to talk about shoguns tonight. But when the title shogun was first used in Japanese history, it was sort of a longer title that effectively meant general designated to go defeat the barbarians. So it's this much longer Japanese title. Shogun is sort of the shortened version of it. So even Japanese people had barbarians. Mostly they considered the native people in the north, who at that point would have been the Ainu, who we will talk about a little bit tonight. Hey, Anne. Everybody should go follow Infernal for occasional sewing streams, occasional chatting streams, and video game streams where Anne runs away from murderers that are trying to kill her while she's fixing a generator. So, what is that, Dead by Daylight? I watched Anne try to beat some baddies last night in Dead by Daylight, and that game just looks... I don't know, like, I don't know if I would dig it. How early into stream am I? We have been streaming for about 15 minutes, so we just kind of got off the ground. You're barely done with your first week after your vacation, and already everything is too much. But I has witnesses, and everyone agrees I am tasked with too much. Ah, Lumpy, yeah. The good old no good deed goes unpunished. The good workers are rewarded with more work. I know how that goes. The modern term for shogun is display firearm. Wow. Alas. Occasional proficient gamer. Una Pive and Umbra. Generators are indeed scary. What's up, Schwanite? Okay, so yeah, the show is Adventures in History, and what we do is talk about history in a way that is fun and laid back and unassuming and hopefully much more entertaining than what you might have experienced in high school or college. My name is Shane. I do teach college in real life. So I have, minor credentials. I've got several magical pieces of paper that I spent lots of money on that say I can do these things. So, incoming clip to post. Can I post here? Absolutely. I don't know what I clipped or what was worth clipping, but I'm always interested to see what people clip. You got unalived. I thought you were trying to write something in Latin, and I was like, I don't know what una pive is. Let's watch this clip. I don't know what that is.
Like a solid silver head, I think. Oh no, he doesn't. He does have actually a really cool head. You should record all about the big song. That'd be funny. Oh my god.
I don't know what particular Gundam. Oh, you clipped the Gundam thing. Yeah, I don't know what relation to Gundam that particular guy is, but that looks pretty cool. Okay, you have a question before we get too into Japan. Cool. Would you consider the invasion of Europe by the Norsemen pillaging or conquest? This is coming from a historian and Norse pagan, so you're very curious. I would consider it both. To begin with, it was pillaging because the original missions by Norsemen going to especially Northern Europe and to a certain extent Eastern British Isles were not designed to hold territory. They were just designed to go get cool stuff and bring it back home. Pillaging is where you go somewhere, you beat them up, you take their cool stuff, and then you go back to where you came from. Okay, Ian, do your thing. So the original Viking or Norseman expansions were pillaging. Now, later on, mostly I would say post 800-ish, perhaps around Rollo time, the idea came that they have good farmland down there. And we don't have as much farmland up here because of Little Ice Age. And it would be really cool if we could go down there and establish roots. But even that was not purely designed at going and expanding the entire realm of the Norsemen. Initially, that was we need to go make bases in foreign places so that we can drop off people here and not have to keep ferrying really large armies over. We can keep a beachhead in the foreign location in order for us to have a staging location so that when we showed up, we don't have to fight to get on land. And places like York, when the Norsemen took York on the island of Great Britain, that was originally just a big staging platform so that they could have a place to land and offload troops and then go back and get more troops. There were small villages around that were, of course, trading with the locals and some local farming, but it really wasn't until they got serious about taking northern France or Normandy that they really decided to switch over to conquest. And Conquest is a different thing where they were going and they were looking for big chunks of land. They were looking to stabilize a state or a group of people. They were looking to perhaps marry into nobility and establish themselves as political ideologies. And then from like the early to mid or so 800s through the we would probably go as far as maybe 1100s if we include all of the stuff that's going on down in the Mediterranean with Normans and places like Sicily, southern Italy, etc. That whole period of time was a period of Norman conquest. So it started off as pillaging and it turned into sort of like halfway houses to efficiently acquire footholds to pillage better, and then it turned into conquest. So that is my answer to a binary question. It was both. Yeah, we had a question about Vikings prior to jumping into Japan. Japan is quite icy and snowy, especially during the winter time. The coastline here, which would have been the western coast of Japan, gets quite cold, especially on the western shore here on this side of the mountains. And the island of Hokkaido gets quite cold and has very, very severe winters. And the population of Hokkaido was rather small for a large majority of the ancient period because it was real cold. And not necessarily the best for supporting huge populations. Of course, that increased over time with things like industrial advances and agricultural advances and things like that. Some of the Norsemen had the Dane law. Specifically, the Danes had the Dane law. Not all of the Norse groups, because there were disparate groups, not necessarily one contiguous unit, practiced Dane law. A lot of those people had individual derivations of that stuff. For the last time, we are Viking cavalry. We are not Norseman horsemen. That's good. Norseman horsemen. That's making a joke about the Rohirrim, I guess. Norseman horsemen. Because if you know anything about Rohan, and especially Tolkien's influences for making Rohan, they're basically horse Vikings. What's up, Cave? I see you there. Hey, Moose snuck in there without me being able to say hello to you. Hello. Just cheese Danish. Got it. I gotcha. Yeah. The cheese Danish. Of course, their famous fortifications along the Rhine, being referred to as the Rhine. You know, that's the cheese Danish when they were invading France. Anyway. I hope that answered your question. Ethereal complications. I feel like I gave a pretty comprehensive answer there, so I feel like that's pretty good. All right, so let's talk about Japan. Now, where we left off, we were talking about a period of time in Japan called the Kofun period. That's the wrong one. So the Kofun period was this period of time where the imperial power was sort of rising. The nobility were establishing themselves as the rich families, and it gets its title from these really big tombs, these big keyhole-shaped tumuli that are called Kofun. These were, of course, evidence of things like the ability to marshal large amounts of manpower, the ability to amass wealth as such to afford such manpower, and centralization of government, right? So the Yamato court is growing during this period, but it's still being more or less dominated by several, not necessarily imperial clans, because there's only one imperial clan, but they are being heavily influenced by some of the big nobility, especially the Soga clan, who had sort of begun not necessarily running the empire, but having a really big say-so over things like which of the imperial clan members got to be emperor, The Soga clan even married into the Imperial family a couple of times. And the emperors were not necessarily individually running the kingdom or empire. They were more figureheads that had a substantial amount of power, but not unlimited power. They weren't totalitarian dictators. They were still restrained quite a bit by especially these big noble families. And that is going to begin to change with the rise of an empress named Suiko. And Empress Suiko is this lady. Now, she had originally been a queen and had married into the Imperial clan. Then a couple of her sons, who were very young, had ruled and died, and she became a ruling empress. Now, this has not happened very frequently. Historically speaking, it's happened 8 or 9 times total in Japanese history, but at this particular point in the late 500s, so she takes over in 592. This had only really happened once before, and it had only happened very, very briefly. So Suiko is going to be in a bit of not necessarily brand new waters when she's trying to run the country, but she's got a lot of pressure on her. And it only takes about a year before the Soga clan and some of the own Imperial clan wranglings end up saying that she needs a regent. She needs a man to make sure that she's doing things right. Her quill must have come from one heck of a budgie, right? So this guy pictured here, Shotoku, who is her nephew. He's an adult, but her nephew gets sort of promoted to the position of regent, and he ends up wrangling the title prince. So he's not necessarily next in line for the throne, but he is sort of now one of the powers behind the throne. And the amount of power that Suiko had has been in a lot of debate. There's a whole bunch of really fine pieces of textual criticism that we can apply to show that she wasn't completely without power. The fact that she survived, her reign lasted longer than Shotoku's life. So like he died and she was empress for another couple of years. That implies that she had some of her own power, but it's pretty clear that this guy Shotoku is going to be a fairly substantial shot caller inside of Japan. And it is going to be Shotoku that really starts us on a path of imperial reform. And this is mostly going to come from the fact that Shotoku had been to China. Now, if you remember last time we were in China, or if you don't, China at this point was being ruled by a dynasty called the Sui, who had finally reunified China after several hundred years of various levels of basically inconstant or inconsistent rule. And when he got over here to China, he's like, oh man, these guys have everything figured out. And so Shotoku is going to start trying to turn Japan into kind of like a copy-paste of the Chinese governmental structure. Of course, China at this time had a very strong centralized empire with a level of bureaucracy that was pretty unparalleled in the ancient world. They had a very strong military presence that was run by the emperor. They had a lot of land policy that was designated to the emperor. And Shotoku says, this is what we need in Japan. If the Imperial clan were at the apex and basically freed from these lesser noble clans, we could probably get a lot more done and we would also be in a lot better position to make our own decisions and not have to sort of bow the knee to these lower noble clans, even though they're very, very powerful, right? So how does he start doing this? Well, he's going to bring back from China a lot of influence with two ideologies. One, of course, the teachings of Buddha. Buddhism has already been introduced to Japan. It had been back in the 500s by some missionaries from Korea, but Shotoku is going to bring back a lot of writings, and he's really going to get excited about Buddhism. He's also going to bring Confucianist policies over. What's up, Shiggy? Yeah, we're talking about Nippon. Good stuff. We'll actually get to the origin of Nippon here in just a little bit. So for those of you who don't know, if you go to Japan, they don't call themselves Japanese. The Japanese word for their country is Nippon. So he's going to bring back all of these ideologies and bring back all these writings and these teachings, and he's going to start working specifically on social policies and political policies. And one of the ways that he decides to assert control over these political opponents and these big clans is by establishing Confucian moral codes. So if you weren't with us when we talked about Confucianism, you can go back and watch the VOD on that one. But Confucianism is very big on knowing what your job is and sort of staying in your lane, right? You are called to do your job. You are supposed to be a superior individual, junsi, and you're supposed to do your job to the best that you can. You're not supposed to be overly ambitious. You're not supposed to push against the goads or kick against the goads. You're supposed to just stay in your line. And of course, this is Shotoku very subtly saying, you are not the Imperial household. In fact, you are lower than us, and you should recognize that and stay in your lane. And one of the things that he's going to do here, right in the year 600, is introduce this thing called the level and cap rank system. So there were 12 levels, and this is something that was in Confucianism in China at the time, and based on basically your political and social and moral fiber, you got promoted to wear different colored caps. And there's like gray ones and white ones and red ones and orange ones and yellow ones and purple ones. Anyway, there are 12 of them, and they're ordered. And you get promoted in this social / moral ranking based on your adherence to the good Confucian moral values. And as a benefit of this, you got to kind of wear around your little cap, right? So this is like, you know, I have 10 million Instagram followers. I'd like to eat for free at your restaurant. It will do your restaurant good knowing that I'm here, right? Isn't getting excited about Buddhism contrary to the teachings of Buddhism? Not as long as you don't get too excited. You can get a little bit excited. You can get an appropriate, moderate level of excited about anything. The point is, in Buddhism, is that everything is in the proper level of moderation, right? I thought Twitch banned Nippons on stream. Yeah, the way that you get around that is, I'm not even going to try to finish that. I was going to try to do something with the joke about pasties, but I just don't know how to get there right now. Stay in your lane, Confucius. As a Dota player, you have heard that phrase a lot. Glad to know the origin. Which phrase is that? Stay in your lane? Confucius did not actually directly quote that, by the way. Just to clarify. So, anyway, you get this political and social status based on your Confucian virtue, and you get to wear a cool little hat that shows everybody when you walk around in public what rank you are. And of course, the cooler your hat is and the higher up the level it is, the more, more pull you get. But of course, the Imperial household is going to be the one that doles this out. And of course, that means if you're pushing against the, against the imperial household and you're not doing what you're supposed to do, they can decrease your levels. Give me the cool hat. You will now go back down a level to lamer hat, etc., etc. He's also going to, just a few years later in 604, 605, institute something that's called the 17 Article Constitution. Now, this is not a constitution as you might understand it. Like when I say constitution, especially people here in the United States will think of the document that is the basis of our government, the United States Constitution. The 17 Article Constitution was a lot more like a handbook of how to act. It was, again, based on these really strict Confucian policies and Confucian values. And it was like, you're not supposed to do this when you're in public. You're supposed to act like this in public. You're supposed to do these things. You're supposed to show the proper respect to these positions and da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da. So it's more of like a social code. It's not necessarily a legal code. But it can have implications on your political aspiration, right? If you're trying to move up or get a better job, if you're breaking one of the articles or you've got a bad level, your hat is not the right color, this can have a pretty big effect on your ability to get promoted. For goodness sake, stop feeding the enemy team, Confucius. Obviously, Confucius said it in a different language, Shane. We're not idiots. I just wanted to make sure. I'm not calling you all idiots. I just want you all to know that I don't speak Mandarin. So Asian social credit systems aren't new. No, they're not. No, they're not at all. And in fact, a lot of the stuff that is going on now in China is very reminiscent, to me at least, or people that know the history of China, very reminiscent to some of the periods of time where Confucianism became incredibly powerful, not just socially, but also politically. If you're with us next week when we talk about, well, not next week, I guess it'll be 2 weeks, because next week we're talking about wars in Korea. The following week, which would be, I believe this is the 21st, when we get to the Tang Dynasty, the Tang Dynasty is going to resurrect a lot of these really, really strict Confucian ideologies, and they're going to implement things like standardized tests to get a job, where you have to go in and prove that you have memorized a proper amount of Confucian virtue and writing to qualify to get this job. And we'll talk about some cheating, and I'll show you some cheat shirts where people had written Confucian stuff on the inside of their tunics so that they could look down their shirt and get quotes. As long as there's been standardized testing, people have been trying to cheat the system, right? Anyway, so we're going to start with this cultural stuff, and that goes over fairly well, except for, of course, these noble clans that don't like being pushed around. Shotoku also does other things that's a little bit more kind of pervasive when it comes to things like changing the calendar. He adopted the Chinese month and date calendar, and this is going to have a pretty big effect on things like when holidays are supposed to be. There's a lot of renegotiation about how to handle contracts and things like that. So it's kind of a messy situation for a little while. But again, this is his effort at bringing Japan to be more in line with China. He's also going to write a lot of stuff, and specifically he's going to take it upon himself to write some commentary on one of the more famous Buddhist sutras. So one of the most famous sutras is the Lotus Sutra. And in fact, the Lotus Sutra is going to sort of become the central, most important of all Buddhist writings in Japan. The particular version of Buddhism that sort of evolves out of Japanese synthesis between Shinto and Buddhism is called Pure Land Buddhism, and the Lotus Sutra is going to be central to that. But anyway, he writes this particular document called the Hokkaigisho, which is considered by some people, and I don't know if I necessarily qualify myself with them, but some people as potentially the first document written in the Japanese language. And I actually have a picture here of what some people, note I say some people, claim to be the actual documents that Shotoku wrote. So this would be a piece of the Hokagisho, which is, again, it's just a commentary on this particular very important Buddhist scripture. And it being written in Japanese is a pretty remarkable moment, because this, even though it is done to sort of create stronger ties between Chinese and Japanese culture, the fact that it's written in Japanese is showing that there is at least some movement towards independent Japanese thought. So that's going to be increasingly important, especially as we go on a little bit into the next period after. I forgot to mention that we've changed periods in Japanese history. I'll do that in just a second. Anyway, after about 710, we enter this period of time called the Nara period, and Japanese writing is going to kick off quite a bit, especially with these big groups of things like poetry documents, like the Manyoshu and things like that. Some people claim that this very Twitch chat is the original document. I haven't seen those sources. I would like to see what they're citing and how they're dating that in order to establish their documents and their arguments. But I mean, I'm always up for reading stuff, and apparently, based on the current stuff that I'm going through right now, enduring is the right word, I guess. I'll sit through some true garbage arguments. I claim me today based on my big brain. I don't know if I can necessarily say that this chat log is the original Japanese source, most notably because it's happening now. So it's about 1,400 years late. Now, if you have some sort of ability to travel back in time and translate this into Old Japanese, I'd be interested in seeing that. I can attest to that. Shane will sit through some garbage arguments. I like to try to give everybody their moment to listen. So big and so smooth. What's up, Calm Heart? Good to see you. Hope you're having a good one. I'll do what I can, but I try. Anyway, so Shotoku is not going to live forever. He dies in 622. Suiko, the Empress, is going to live for another 6.5 or 7 years, and she dies in 628. But what's the legacy of these two rulers? One of the things that is notable that we can directly attest to Suiko, because I just talked there a whole bunch about what Shotoku was doing, and and this is not trying to be me being super misogynist, it's just kind of the way that history preserves this stuff. It might have been Suiko making some of these decisions and Shotoku taking credit for them, but even the way that Japanese stuff sort of hints at things like empresses being the motivating factors, there's not really a lot of evidence that she was behind a lot of these reforms. It's pretty clearly Shotoku, but that doesn't mean that Suiko was doing nothing. She is listed as the patron of a lot of buildings, specifically Buddhist shrines and temples. There are lots of them that get dedicated to her, and some even that apparently she might have overseen the dedication of in person, but that gets kind of sketchy. We do know that during the end of Shotoku's life and the last 7 or so years of Suiko's reign, that some of this sort of social and political commentary that they had been pushing did have some effect, and the Soga clan, who was at that time the big non-Japanese Imperial clan powerhouse, got sort of pushed a little bit to the side. So it does look like by the end of Suiko's reign, she had a little bit more latitude But it looks like some of that evaporated when she actually did die, because there's a bit of a power scuffle upon her death. And one of the things that happens is that there were two candidates. So one candidate was was basically Suiko's great nephew, not her direct nephew. That would have been Shotoku, but her great nephew, from the other side. So this is not Shotoku's kid, but Shotoku's kid was the other potential Imperial clan, right? So we've got two candidates: the one that Suiko picked and the one that some people wanted. And some of the people that thought Shotoku's son should take over were the ones that were really excited about these new Buddhist and Confucian groups, this new influence from China. A lot of people were like, hey, if we pick Shotoku's son, he's going to sort of pick up where Shotoku left off and continue these new reforms. But some of the other people, including the Soga clan, were like, no. We need to stay away from Shotoku's family. We need to go back to kind of the main branch of the Imperial line, and we need to put this guy that is Suiko's great nephew on the throne. And the competition gets kind of politically fierce, and what ends up happening is that Shotoku's son ends up committing suicide. Now, it does appear that he chose to do this on his own, that he wasn't forced into doing it. But the fact that he was in a position where he felt that that was a viable out was sort of pretty telling. Like, he might not have felt like he was going to get an option if he waited, and he decided to go ahead and do it while he had the power to go out on his own. But either way, what ends up happening is we get a new emperor who is Emperor Jomei. And Jomei takes over in 629. Is that not why you are here? What's up, Steve? Everybody go follow my friend Steve Conley. Steve Conley. This raid brought to you by My Prancing Pony. My Prancing Pony. Jabberwock free since 1082. Steve Conley, of course, is the artist and writer for The Middle Age, a great webcomic. Steve has been working on some 3D modeling lately for one of his characters named Kevin, who is a great character who speaks in Gothic font, and I quite love it. How did the modeling go, Steve? I saw that you had tweaked some initial stuff last night and posted that photo this morning, but I hope everything went well. For those of you coming in on Steve's raid, welcome, and I hope everybody's doing okay. My name is Shane. I do history stuff, IRL, and I talk history stuff here on stream. But we're kind of goofing off talking about China and Japan, and how Japan kind of wanted to be China, and how the Imperial clan really likes the idea of Japan kind of being China, and people ended up, committing suicide, which is pretty common in ancient Japan, so I'm not condoning suicide. Metran is a bit late, but you're here, ready for Japan. Boom, boom. What's up, Metran? Hope you're having a good one. Good to see you. All right. We just got a new emperor. His name is Jomei. You can see him down there. I don't have a picture of him, unfortunately, but he reigns from 629 to 641. Again, he does have a little bit of a rigmarole to get on the throne, but it ends up being kind of the opposite side of what a lot of people expected. Raveland, hello to you. Good to see you. Hope you're having a good one. We're here to learn. I don't know if that's going to happen, but I'll do my best. So for those of you that might not be familiar, or if you just need a refresher, on Thursday nights we are going through history in chronological order. And tonight we are starting a new century. We we do chronological order, but we do it in century chunks, and we do it in regional chunks. So we're doing the 7th century, which is the year, of course, 600 to the year 699. And we started that tonight, and we started in Japan. We sort of start in the, like the international date line. And we're doing Japan. And so if you catch us next Thursday night, we're going to be doing 7th century Korea. And it's not very pretty in 7th century Korea. The three kingdoms there all decide to go to war, and then the Chinese get involved, and the Japanese get involved, and it gets real, real nasty, and a lot of feelings get hurt. And then we'll do 7th century China, and we'll talk about Persia and India and all these other places as we go around. And when we get all the way over here to the Americas and wrap up with the Americas, we'll start the 800s, or the 8th century. It starts 700, and we'll come back over here to Japan, and we'll do it all again. So that's kind of the way that we do things around here. If you have any questions about any of this stuff, you're welcome to throw those in the chat. Doesn't necessarily have to be on topic. I'm okay with random tangents. We've already talked about whether or not the Norsemen were conquerors or pillagers. We talked about that for like 5 minutes at the beginning of the streams, which is fine because I actually quite like that stuff. It's part of my family history. Hello from Europe. Good to see you. Raveland, if you don't mind me asking, what part of Europe? You don't have to be specific about what your city is, but what part of Europe? I like to kind of keep a mental map of where all of my viewers are. You're very interested in history, but you don't know much about Asian history. Oh, that's cool. International Dateline is there. What is GMT? Greenwich Mean Time. That's where we start time zones, because the dateline is where, the sun comes up, but time is where the British were, right? Oh, the British. Of course, they had, territory all the way around the world, and they were able to get away with making that happen, and everybody else sort of went all around with them, but, one of my friends, Mac in a lab coat, and I once toyed around with the idea of starting a fake Twitter account. And the fake Twitter account was going to basically be an individual that hated the modern concept of time zones and dates, and specifically hated things like daylight savings time. And this particular character was going to have all of these really silly hashtags. And one of them was going to be eliminate time zones, hashtag international hate line. So anyway, that was completely random and stupid. We never actually did it. It was more funny in the moment than it would have been if we tried to get it going. And honestly, we were scared that it would have actually caught on and people would have taken it seriously, which kind of sucks. I'm from the countries that is in Central Europe. We actually talked about if you're in Germany or Austria, which would have been Z. Yeah, okay, so 50-50 Germany. So there's, yeah. We actually talked on Tuesday. We did a viewer request stream on specifically the police state that was established in East Germany. So we talked a lot about the Stasi on Tuesday. There's a pretty rough group of people in a pretty rough period of time. I don't know exactly where you are in Germany. I've been in Germany. It's a very pretty place. I'd love to go back and visit. Off topic, British Empire themed. Have I been watching Miss Marvel? No, I haven't. I like to wait until things are done and then watch them all at once. And I got behind on watching things when I went to Turkey, and I was catching up with some stuff, and I then went to Heroes, and I had to prioritize things that I thought would be spoiled on the internet faster, so I watched Obi-Wan as soon as we got back from Heroes. Miss Marvel is on the list, as is all crud. Stranger Things, which I know that we have to watch. Is Better Call Saul is the current? No. The current season is on mid-season break. I remember that. I'll want to watch all of that when it finally comes out. We're also trying to catch up on His Dark Materials, the HBO show, which is so much better than the movie. Oh my gosh, that movie was hot garbage. And the show's okay. It's a little slow, but I think the books are a little slow. So it works out. The actors and actresses in that show are great, especially Daphne Keane, who played X-23 in Logan, but is the main character Lyra in His Dark Materials. She's an excellent young actress, and I look forward to watching her get more roles. What else have we been not catching up on? It feels like there's something else that we missed, but I can't remember what it is. Oh, you're Austrian. I gotcha. International team. Luckily, you weren't born in East Germany. That's good. Depending on how old you were, that might not be that big of a deal. If you were my age and born in East Germany, you had a pretty rough kindergarten. Yeah. No, you are from Germany. Okay, cool. All right. Let's try to get back on track, at least for a little bit. So, Jomei, what's up with this guy? Well, he kind of liked this idea of China, and the people that were hoping to maybe not be as big on Chinese reform are actually going to sort of get bitten in the rear end by backing Jomei as a candidate, because he's actually going to start these things that he called missions. And these are not necessarily just trips to China. These are like extended stay, multi-year, sometimes even multi-decade trips where he will find people inside of Japan that go to China to learn stuff, specifically things like architecture and art and philosophy, metallurgy, political theory, economic theory, and basically go to China and just steep themselves in Chinese culture and knowledge for sometimes 20 years, and then come back to Japan, and as they had mastered the material, then teach people within Japan the stuff that they were going to be able to explain on a much deeper level now. And the first of these missions went out in 630, and this is going to start paying some fairly big dividends for the Imperial clan, because with these new sort of very, very skilled, learned individuals in Japan that had direct access to knowledge that they had gained in China, the Imperial House is going to be able to make a lot more changes in an informed way, right? When you're just sort of basing everything on what you think it is, you can get some stuff done. But when you have like skilled individuals that have studied these things for long periods of time, they're going to be able to just rattle stuff off. So this is going to sort of be the beginning of the end for the Soga clan, and they really don't like this. The Imperial household, and this is a little bit kind of going around, sneaky like, Jomei and some of the members of the Imperial household come up with a plot. And this plot is basically designed to kill the clan leader of the Soga. And the plot doesn't go so great, but he does end up dying anyway in a big fight. They were supposed to sort of sneak in and give him the old stab in the dark. But it ended up turning into a bit of a brawl, and he got wounded on the way out, and they had to kind of fight a little bit of a battle kind of thing. Anyway, the Soga clan leader is assassinated, and this is kind of a big moment because now they don't really know what's going on. And the Imperial clan sort of claims this as a big victory, and then goes to the Soga clan and says, not only have we killed your clan leader, now the retired clan leader and the heir, so basically the clan leader's dead, and his father, who had retired but was still sort of running things from behind the scene, and his heir have to kill themselves. So we're basically wiping out 3 generations of the Soga clan. We are in the 630s. So from 630, this particular happens in like 630, I think it's 637 if I'm correct, but you don't have to necessarily quote me on that. I believe it's 637. But when this happens, when the Soga clan is eliminated for 3 generations, the emperors are now basically allowed to operate with unilateral control. And this is going to be kind of the first time that they can ever really do this. Which they can... Oh, Shiggy. Beware of the literal snark that can come out of some of the viewers here. So we've got emperors sort of unbound. And what do? Well, Jomei does his thing, and there's a little bit of a scuffle for a little bit. There are a couple of emperors that are short-lived that come after his particular period of time. But we're going to end up with a new emperor named Kotoku. Not Kotaku, Kotoku. There's an important difference here. And Kotoku looks like this. There you go. Good old Kotoku. So, what's up with this guy and why is he important? Well, first off, he's the emperor. And second off, he's going to be the only emperor so far that has been able to run the show completely by himself for his entire reign. And boy, does he get some stuff going. He looks very Japanese. Probably, if we look at his lineage, a lot of the people that were his ancestors were Japanese, and him being, of course, the emperor. I'm just being a butthole now. Pay no attention to the pasty white guy. You like his large popsicle stick? And the flowers are a nice touch. Oh, sorry. This would have been a fan, not a popsicle stick. Like, where's my popsicle? I would like another popsicle, please. Anyway. Yeah, flowers, pretty cool. Pretty cool. So, what's this guy do? Well, he decides that he's going to set himself up on a really big, really serious set of reforms. And these, in history, are referred to as the Tai-ka reforms. Is that fitting? No, it's not fitting. The Tai-ka reforms. Which brings us to Cuts Taka Knife. But of course, Kotoku said it does feel so right. Hope everybody gets that. I don't know if you're Bryan Adams fans. If you're not, where were you in the 80s and early 90s? Anyway, what is the point of the Tai-ka reforms? Well, it's designed to cut all of the clans out of power. Yes, I teach college history and sociology. That's how I make the medium bucks. I don't make the big bucks. I make the medium bucks. So the Tai-ka reforms are designed basically to hobble all of the other clans except for the Imperial clan. And these are designed to centralize power to the Imperial clan, and it's designed to make sure that all of the decisions that need to be made get to be made by the Emperor. And these are not like done one at a time, or I'm sorry, these are not done all at once. These are sort of rolled out over a period of time. And this is going to start with land reform. one of the things that was true in China that was not true in Japan is that in China the emperor claimed ownership of all of the land. So this is sort of a feudal model where the emperor owns everything and then distributes the land into parcels to supporters and removes it as punishment. So Kotoku goes, we need to do that. And he is going to claim all of the land. He said, all of the land in the empire is now mine. And what's important is that when a person died, the ownership or usage of that land would revert to the emperor. So there was no longer a guarantee of hereditary ownership of a parcel of land. So some of these big noble families that had ruled in these regions for hundreds of years are no longer going to be able to necessarily count on having that same chunk of land forever. I just got a puppy nose. Hello, puppy. Do you want to come see me? Come here. Or you want to come over here? Hey, come see me. Come on. Come on. Come on. Oh, yes, there's the puppy. There's a big, rotten puppy. Hello. Hello. What are you doing? What are you doing? Oh, thank you for the sugars. Hello. Scratch your booty. Oh, yes. Loves getting the booty scratched. You're going to come over here now? What are you doing? Scratch your booty again. I don't know where you are. She's literally right behind me. Here, come over here. I can't reach you. That's a good girl. What are you doing? Do you need to go outside? You need to go potty? Now you're just coming to say hello? You big rotten thing. She's like right behind the chair. Is the dog a fan of history? I don't know if the dog has the capacity to remember history. She's a very kind and a very loving dog, but she's so dumb. We have emotes for the puppy. We have the puppy head pat, and we have the puppy of war. Oh, the puppy. So that's Kaylee, who's now parked very solidly directly behind my chair. Okay, so land reforms. Yeah. Not guaranteed by heredity anymore. You have to hope that the emperor gives it back to your family. When you die, your heir has to go visit the emperor and ask for the land back. You know, maybe in dog history. Oh yeah, she definitely remembers puppies very well. Hey, are you licking your legs? You gotta stop licking your legs. Yeah, you're gonna lick a little spot on yourself. Yeah, you gotta stop licking. She's got allergies, and she'll go outside and play, and then she'll come in and she itches because she has allergies, and if we just let her lick, she'll lick all of her fur off and make a hot spot. Mice, then dolphins, then humans, then dogs. I think with the intellectual difference between dolphins and humans, you sadly might be right. The Great Dog War in front of the Pedigree Factory, right? We joke sometimes, my wife and I, that there are original covenants that are ancestral binding contractual agreements between the first humans and the first wolves that became domesticated. These rules are things like there cannot be two humans on a couch if there's not a puppy in between them. These rules are things like if a puppy does anything horrible, the puppy must be rewarded with TREATS. These are the deep magics of the human puppy agreement that goes way back into the deep ages of human history. So we joke about the rules all the time, like the rules. Fundamentals, exactly, right? That probably tells you a lot about how nerdy I am in real life, right? I'm not really any different in real life than I am here on stream, except for in real life I say a lot more curse words. I've only cursed a few times on stream, and I caught myself both of those times. Anyway, or 3 or 4 times. I can't remember. Anyway, what else is involved in the Tai-ka reform? Well, the emperor becomes the final arbiter of dispute. So, previously, you could sort of take your problems to a kind of committee of clan heads and kind of get them to make a decision. So this was kind of like the judicial appeal system. Or, you could just call somebody out and take them to the field and have a duel or something like that. But the emperor becomes the final arbiter of dispute. So if there are decisions made by a council of clan leaders, you can then appeal above that to the emperor. Profanity is an official language here in Australia. What's up, Meg? I've heard that. I've never been to Australia myself. I would love to go. There's a lot of really interesting history that I would love to see in Australia. But my father-in-law spent quite a bit of time there and said that the vocabulary is substantially different. All right, go to make food. All right, I don't speak fluent French, by the way, Tropical Geek. I claim nerd, but I don't claim the ability to speak fluent French. I only speak a little bit of French, but I hope that your food is delicious, and probably will be based on your knowledge of cooking. So, all right. Also, Meg, hope you're doing well. Good to see you as always. My father-in-law was in Australia and said that the everyday lexicon was substantially different than it was here in the States. So, all right, land reform, legal reform. Next, the emperor is the origin of law. So, effectively, the emperor becomes the law speaker, right? And this is a unilateral thing where the emperor can just decree something. Quoi? Tu ne parles pas français? A little bit. I can get around. I can read French much better than I can speak French. I don't speak a lot. I speak Spanish much better than I speak French. Much better. I wouldn't say that I'm fluent in Spanish, but I have a substantially larger. Like, I could go to Spain and be okay. After a few weeks, I would know everything that I would need to know, and I would pick up what I would need really fast. Latin, I can kind of get by in. I know, like, I read German a lot better than I speak German. I probably know more French vocally than I know German vocally. But I can probably read German better than I can read French, if that makes any sense. I think it's because German is a lot closer to English ethnologically, and French is further from English. French classes are much more common than Spanish classes here. That's interesting. Well, I mean, I guess it makes sense because you're right by France. And France sort of being a bigger player in the EU than Spain is. I can see that. I can see that. French. I speak French. What's funny, I used to teach Spanish. And teaching Spanish in the deep south of the United States, I got to hear Southern drawl applied to Spanish. So, I would be speaking to my students, and I would try to be speaking in good grammar and good diction, and my students would be like, "Hola, profesor, ¿cómo está? Me llamo Shane." And oh my gosh, it was just mis orejas. It sounded like butchering, but it was pretty funny. And because of the history of French and European culture came before the global lingua franca. Yeah, land reform or retention of imperial power or influence. Dish your neighborhood, suck up to the throne, maybe get their land. Yes, so Magnificent, this is actually the initial assertion of imperial ownership of land under Kotoku when he is reigning. So the Tai-ka reforms start in 645. Coma estal. Yeah. It was weird, man. It was really weird. Okay, so emperor is the origin of law, can pass laws by decree, and there is a sort of top to bottom overhaul of the bureaucratic nature of the court. So all of the old positions get eliminated, and the court gets restructured with new cabinet positions. This would be like if the new... Okay, I was going to try to make a Boris Johnson joke, but I don't know if it's there. I think Boris Johnson might be the joke. This would be like if the President of the United States said, okay, we're not going to have the Department of Justice or the Department of the Interior or the Department of War or the Department of the Treasury. We're going to eliminate all of these departments, and we're going to make new departments, and we're going to put new people in those positions. So what ends up happening here is that all of the old noble clans who had held a lot of these positions, like finance minister, minister of war, etc., for generations, are going to lose their jobs. And then they're going to have to go back to the emperor and try to beg for their job back in a new capacity. And these jobs are no longer guaranteed by heredity. So when you die, your son does not automatically get this job. So follow the money or the power/influence, basic drivers in most societies. That's true. Wasn't that what Trump ran on? Not directly. He wanted to get rid of the deep state, which is what he referred to as the people that were secretly running the country. But this would literally be like dissolving the Department of the Treasury and creating a new department called the Department of Financial Affairs. And it would do basically the same thing, but you would get to restructure it from the ground up and eliminate all of the positions within Treasury and build new positions that were ostensibly better or theoretically better. Best description you ever heard of Boris: a man who waits to see which way the crowd is going and then jumps in front and says, "Follow me." I don't even know if we can give him that. Because that effectively gives him the knowledge of what people like. Because even though Brexit passed, it wasn't what people liked. And even though he did some stuff to try to mitigate COVID, it really wasn't what people liked. And even in the last couple of weeks, as people have been telling him, you've got to go because you suck, he hasn't gone. Yeah, Kovefi, that was a whole mess. So we have restructured basically everything. We're also going to move to a new capital city. We're going to move away from Yamato. Yamato had been the capital city of the emperor for basically since it started. And we're going to move to a new city that's called Naniwa, which we call today Osaka. And if you go to Osaka today, you can still see a lot of the cool stuff that came from this period of time. This was done for a few reasons. Number one, we get to build a cool new palace. And this cool new palace is going to be designed to impress, and it's going to be built around Chinese concepts. Also, we're going to move away from Yamato because that was the old way that the emperor did things. We're now doing things in a new way. We've got a new capital. This is the new emperor. Same imperial clan, different imperial flavor. We're going to do things differently now. Also, this is closer to the sea. It was a big port city because one of the things that's going to start coming out of these imperial reforms is that the emperor is going to get much more interested in what's going on in regions around Japan and also regions outside of Japan, like Korea and China. So being next to a port, it's a good place to be, right? Brexit was super popular for like a week. I don't even know if it was really popular in that week. I don't think people really understood what they were voting for when they voted for it. But that's just my take. I wasn't there. Okay, so Tai-ka reforms. They're very successful in doing what they were supposed to do. And during this time, we're going to start kind of zooming out a little bit. One of the things that's going to happen is Japan is going to start looking at the world around them, not necessarily just as places to get cool stuff, but almost as kind of equals. You do not have to understand something for it to be popular, like with Kanye. That is a fair assertion, and I will accept that as the truth, because I've seen it happen way too many times. So we're going to be looking around us more. And the imperial policy is going to be one of expansion, right? So one of the things that the emperors are going to start looking at is the rest of Japan. So at the time, the imperial powers were basically sort of this region right here and south. Now, the big island down here of Kyushu had not really been brought into the larger Japanese imperial realm. Neither had this northernmost part of the big island of Honshu, nor had Hokkaido, this really big island up here. So we're going to start moving around here, and there's going to be more motion into Kyushu. There's going to be military activity up here, and there's going to be a big-scale invasion of Hokkaido. And one of the guys that is going to make a name for himself is kind of a quasi-mythological figure that comes out of this period. And I've completely lost my train of thought here. Abe no Hirafu. I was trying to do too many things at once. Now, what's up with this guy? Well, he's a pretty cool dude if you know. Were the Ainu more independent at this time? Yes, they were. But they're about to start getting attacked, specifically by this guy, Abe no Hirafu. I'm misunderstood. Does that mean you're popular? Absolutely. You're super popular around here. I think that everybody around here just gives rave reviews, right? Here's Abe no Hirafu. And you're like, okay, what's going on here? This is kind of messy. Well, you've got this guy here who is the warrior. And he is fighting this big thing here, which is a bear. Now, why a bear? Well, if you know anything about the Ainu believe that bears are sacred. And specifically, the Ainu believe that humans are descended from bears. So Abe no Hirafu here shown slaying a bear, it's kind of telling you a story. What ends up happening is that Abeno Harafu ends up going to Hokkaido with a fairly sizable force of soldiers and beats the crap out of the people there and loots a bunch of their stuff and brings back bears to the imperial court, and is one of the first times that the people of Hokkaido, the native people, the Ainu there, are going to have to start dealing with imperial expansionist policies. Ainu were often... Dun, 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 dun. Raveland, thank you so much for that follow. Welcome to the adventure, and I hope you come back and have great adventures with us in the future. Ainu were considered monkeys, so it's interesting that they went for bears instead of monkeys. I think it could have gone either way. I think it could have, but that's a good point. Oh yeah, absolutely, Indiana Jones. I'm not shy in saying that when I was a kid, I totally wanted to be Indiana Jones. And that a lot of the way that I try to get history across is kind of the way that I think Indiana Jones would teach history in a very interesting way after trying to have been there. Bears, yeah. Raveland wants to call up the puppy again. Well, happily, she's literally right here. Hey, come and see me. Come here. Come here. Are you showing me your tummy? Oh, let me see if I can... I'm going to have to figure out a way to get a longer cable. Because when she's... Here, come here. Come here. Come here. You're okay. What are you doing? Where are you going? Oh, the puppy. Look right here. You want to sniff it? You have just been sniffed. So this is Kaylee. She is named after the mechanic on the starship Serenity. So her full name is Kaylee Fry. Kaylee Fry McInnes. And she is a mutt. She's part boxer and part some version of terrier. And I think she's like 7 years old. Is that correct? Hey, what you doing? You doing okay? Yeah. That's a good girl. Oh, the itches. Oh yes, that's the puppy. All right. There we go. Oh yes, the head pops. Boxer plus terrier equals barrier. Yeah, we're not quite sure how that particular pairing came across. I like to joke that it was either a very ambitious terrier or a very unfortunate terrier. Mutts are always healthier. She's been mostly healthy. She hurts herself more than she has actual health problems. She's very clumsy. Like, she'll run into sharp things. She'll try to eat everything and get bitten by stuff. She's only had like one actual health problem, and it was a really, really weird one where some of her hair follicles on her side got really messed up and started like mutating and turning into this like really hard lumpy thing, and so they had to take part of her side out. But I hate that To be part of a conversational society, I'm expected to learn eons worth of history. Who has time to read a history? Dude. Dude, yesterday I was so done with that. I was so done with that. Like the bluntness and weird questions had reached a level that had to that extent been unparalleled, and it was just too much. Just too much. And some of you have no idea what I'm talking about, but that's okay. If you are not already following my friend David Peterson, you got to go give this guy a follow. He's an amazing artist and a cool dude that has a wit that I really appreciate. And we give each other crap all the time, so there we go. Maybe she's falling in love because she's clumsy. Oh, I thought falling in love was hard on the knees. I was led to believe that by Aerosmith. Alternatively, you can just make crap up nowadays. Yeah, pretty much, right? All right, so, yeah, we're Imperial power. We're big. We're going to go beat up everybody else on the Japanese islands, including the Ainu. We're going to go up to Hokkaido. We're going to beat the junk out of them. We're going to capture a lot of their bears and bring people back as slaves and kill people off, and it's just no good. Abe no Hurafu is referred to as one of the great generals of the time. He's almost, like this sort of unequaled in battle guy, the bigger than life kind of dude. And, it is what it is, but let's just be real. War does not make one great. And that's an important quote from a guy that you really should listen to. I hope somebody knows where that quote comes from. All right. There's also a brief period here where Japan gets involved in Korean politics in order to preserve the more complete story for next week when we actually talk about the Korean Wars. I'll just say that Japan tries to get involved and it gets the crap kicked out of it in 665 and has to run back home. And when the Japanese army gets back home in 665, they start building themselves a whole bunch of really big castles, especially castles along the coastline, because they're afraid that they had angered the larger powers and gotten themselves into some big stuff. But what's interesting about this period in history is that we have gotten close enough in time that some of these are still preserved, including this big sea defense wall right here, which is at a place called Onojo Castle, which is on the southwestern coast, where if you were, let's say, a big Chinese or Korean fleet, you might want to land and fight the Japanese. But there's a big castle here, and they have these big fortifications. This is part of a larger structure that is still around. And now that I say that, I wonder if we can get a better image on Street View. Let's go check it out. That is not the correct castle. That is Ono Castle. No. Not what I'm talking about. All right, let me just see if I can find it. No, this is going to take way too long. Anyway, you could see here that this is, again, just across this region here from Korea. I guess that I'm not going to be able to get necessarily good pictures of the seawalls. But anyway, there you go. You get the idea. You got to protect the neck, right? Well, I was hoping I could get a good, like a street view from top down. And it's there. You can go check it out. There's not as much of it there, apparently, as I thought there was. But that's okay. that's a pretty big deal. We'll talk more about Japan getting involved in that war next Thursday if you come back around. Other emperors are going to come around later. The subsequent emperor is a guy named Genji. I'm sorry, Tenji, not Genji. Well, his name is right there. Anyway, Tenji is going to be important. Here he is. Because he is... the name is Anojo Castle. Because he is going to introduce something called the Omi Code. And the Omi Code is an actual codification of law. And this is one of the first and biggest legal codes that Japan had seen. It actually is the biggest. And depending on whether or not you want to count Shotoku's attempt at social contracts as being a legal code, this is like actual clear law. Like, here's what you can do, here's what you can't do, blah, blah, blah. Now, Tenji is going to be sort of in a position to be able to do this because of the fact that by the time he is ruling in the late 660s, the imperial power had grown over the course of, like the last decade and a half, and they could establish legal codes, right? Because again, under the Tai-ka reforms, one of the big sort of reform ideas was that the emperor was the source of the law. So Tenji is going to be in a position where he can take advantage of that, and does so quite successfully with the Omi Code. Now, it might not surprise everybody, but when you have one position that's really powerful and people get excited about it, you might want to try to take that from somebody, right? As long as Emperor was kind of just a figurehead and could do some stuff, it would be nice to have it. And, there were definitely wars fought over who was going to get it. But when you are in a position to be sort of a unilateral power that has no equal and no checks and balances, that is a much more desirable position. And this is going to come to a point when Tenji dies. Tenji, for a long time, did not have a son. And at the early part of his reign, when he was hoping to have a child, he had initially designated his brother, whose name was Tenmu, as emperor or heir. So if Tenji dies, Tenmu would take over. But sort of later on in life, he does in fact have a kid, and this kid is going to be named Kobun. And Tenji goes, okay, sorry brother, I know that I said you were going to be emperor, but I've got a son now, he's clearly going to be emperor, and this did not sit well. Did not sit well at all. Oh wow, I don't think all of that came through. It did not all come through. Let me see if I can kit bash that back together. I don't even know how to show that. Okay, so thank you, Tropical. I appreciate that. Anojo Castle remains. There we go. I thought it would just zoom right to that on the old Google Earth there. Okay, so Tenji dies, and his son Kobun becomes emperor. So Tenji is gone. Kobun is emperor. But This doesn't sit well with his uncle. And in fact, his uncle had directly lied to Tenji. So when Tenji was about to die, he called his brother in and he said, look, I know that I had at one point said that you were going to be emperor. I know that you're not happy that I replaced you as heir. I want you to swear to me that you're not going to try to take it from my son. And Tenmu was like, no. Look, man, I don't want the throne anymore. It was a bad deal anyway. I'm going to go become a monk. I'm going to go to a Buddhist temple or monastery, and I'm just going to become a monk. And at the end of Tenji's life, he had actually done this. And then as soon as Tenji died, he's like, okay, the plot is afoot. And immediately begins to collect supporters and military. And it's not too long after Kobun is enthroned as emperor that his uncle begins a rebellion against him. So now we have a civil war. And it's brother versus uncle. And it's not a nice war. This is referred to in history as the Genshin War. And it's pretty brutal. It doesn't last very long, but there is a lot of bloodshed. And what ends up happening is Tenmu is going to be able to put Kobun in a position where Kobun basically doesn't have a lot of options. And instead of being captured, humiliated, tortured, and probably killed, Kobun instead decides to take his own life. So Tenmu is going to come out of the Genshin War as undisputed emperor, but there are problems that have been exposed by this scenario. Most notably, the ease at which Tenmu was able to build military power and challenge Kobun disturbed Tenmu greatly. Because if he could do it that easily, pretty much anybody else could, right? And that's scary to him. So what do you do in that situation? Well, you try to make sure that the military is yet more deeply tied directly to the emperor and not to any other clan or even to the larger extended imperial family. You want them loyal to only the emperor. So how do you do this? Well, you start building up the military and you pay them out of the imperial treasury. And you also build more castles. And you basically say this is an imperial castle. Yes, it might be in a clan territory that is not the imperial clan, but this is a castle that is owned by the emperor. So they kind of build power bases scattered out through the territory that are owned by the emperor, that are governed and run by imperial soldiers, and you always keep these people on their toes. One of the things that Tenmu really started pushing was inspections, where he would send people that were directly loyal to him on inspection tours, and they would just pop up at your place and go, hey, show me all of your stuff. Are you by any chance stockpiling weapons? Are you paying mercenaries? Are you properly reporting your taxes? Are you doing everything that you're supposed to? And are you following the rules in the way that you're supposed to follow the rules? And this was a direct way of making sure that nobody was quietly building up power or tucking away money or very quietly, usurping the control of some of these imperial military units. And this really started shrinking the circle of people that the emperor could count on. And the imperial family was going to end up, under Tenmu's reign, taking over a lot more of the governmental and bureaucratic positions that had previously been held by clan leaders. Because Tenmu had basically gone to some of these clan leaders and said, hey, look, if you support me, I'll give you jobs. And they were like, fine, I'll commit, whatever I need to. Just put me in that job. And that freaked him out. He's like, these guys can be bought, with just a job. So I don't even want them in the job in the first place. I'm going to put, somebody from my family in that job. And this is kind of ironic considering that he was, the uncle of the guy that he just had kill himself. And it's kind of odd that he decided to go that way, but I guess he was hoping that the Imperial family would be least or less likely to betray the Emperor than some other random clan. Now, this was a period of time where a lot of stuff is going on, right? We've talked about a whole bunch of different changes. So let's kind of back up a little bit and just talk just in general about the Asuka period. Because this is the period of time that we are in. So we've left the Kofun period. We are in the Asuka period. I guess I could put period here. Now, this is distinctly different than the Ashoka period, which of course is when Rosario Dawson gets roles in Disney films. But the Asuka period is this larger concept of the Emperor taking over. And there's a lot of different dates as to when this started or when it ended or blah, blah, blah. But this is a pretty marked change in Japanese history. And it is a really important one that has a lot of ramifications that stretch forward. So I want to take a moment just to make sure that we understand what's going on kind of in a larger scope of things. One of the big things that's happening in the background of the Asuka period is the spread of Buddhism. And this is happening especially in noble clans, the rich people, the people that want to be closer to the emperor. They're going to be converting much more frequently to Buddhism. And this is going to show itself culturally when you have things like Butsudan, which are these little Buddhist shrines that people have in their homes. So if you are turning part of your house into a Buddhist shrine, this is a pretty clear example that you are kind of going all into this Buddhist ideology. This is going to have an effect on... Oh, crap, I forgot to show you a lot of these people. Let me show you some pictures real quick, and I'll pick back up. So this is Kobun, the kid that was the son of Tenji that ended up having to kill himself. I've got these photos, and I don't even show them. This is Tenmu, the guy who decided to usurp the throne from his nephew and then went on to overhaul the military and pass a whole bunch of inspections and generally be a giant jerk. Sorry I missed those when it would have been more appropriate. But another thing that this has a big influence on is the art and the architecture. So the picture that I showed you of Shitoku, earlier in the stream, if I get back to Shitoku, this image is very much in the Buddhist style of art, with the long face, the very, very thin eyes, and the kind of the round cheeks with these long drapes. This is a lot of influence from Chinese Buddhist art that's taking place inside of Japan. They look chubby, and I have not met chubby Japanese. Not that there is anything wrong with that, just noting. Well, I think some of that is that when you draw your emperor, you want him to appear healthy, and a sign of prosperity in the ancient world is being able to be overweight. That was not something that many people had the luxury to be able to do. So you don't want to show them as morbidly obese, but to show them with, a plastic, what is it? Festively plump. I think that's what Cartman said. I'm not fat, I'm just festively plump. So you want to show them as healthy because they're not chunky emperors. Chunky emperor, pleasantly plump. Right. They are images of health, right? So they have access to the good food, they have access to nutrition, they have a well balanced diet, and you want to show them as hale and hardy and healthy, right? Chonky Donkey, I don't know. I thought about like just making Chonky Horse a summon, like summon the Chonky Horse, and we would just have an image of the Chonky Horse. But I haven't done anything with that yet. For those of you that have not been around, one of the sort of stand-in unofficial mascots of the stream is Chonky Horse, and this comes from a particular image of a Xianbei warrior riding on horseback. And every time we talk about the Xianbei people, I manage to find a way to show Chonky Horse. So it's just become a bit of a joke. Hang around a lot longer and you'll get to be part of the next goofball inside joke that we have here on Adventures in History. So one of the things that ends up happening right here at the end of the Asuka period is that we get yet another new capital. And this one's going to be built as a completely new city, basically from the ground up. And it's at this place called Fujiwara-kyo. And they built Fujiwara-kyo from nothing. It was not even a village at that point. They built it from scratch. And they built it to literally be a copy of a Chinese city. It has like the straight line grid intersection streets. It has the districts in the right place, you know, the temple district and the palace district and et cetera, as the Chinese city would have it. And as we are lucky, we have pictures of some of this stuff. So this is the remains of the base of a tower and a castle pagoda structure that's at a place called Kiyomihara. Kiyomihara was the castle that was in this new capital city. And you can see that they've got some of the original paving stones that are still around. And again, we're getting to a period that's a little bit closer to us so that we can start showing some more of these pictures. And another thing that starts happening again, especially with the Imperial family, is the sponsorship of these big Buddhist monasteries and temples. So this is a really, really famous one that's called Horyuji. And it was built by Suiko. I mentioned earlier that one of the things that she did as empress that was sort of on her own was build and dedicate some of these big monasteries and temples. So this particular one was built in 607, and then it underwent some reconstruction in the 670s after a fire. But this is one of the buildings that is more or less intact that you can still go see today, that comes from the Asuka period. And you can see here that these buildings, if we just look at them, are pretty clearly influenced by Chinese Buddhist architecture. So again, this is Horyuji Temple, a place that I would very much love to go see if I ever got to go to Japan. So this is also a period of time where learning and writing is going to flourish. These big missions from China that had been started, way back under Emperor Jomei are going to start coming back, right? And I said that some of these have, been gone for 20 years, 30 years. And some of these people are going to bring with them these huge collections of Chinese documents. They're going to bring with them art. They're going to bring with them the written word, Chinese narrative art like poetry, plays, histories, novels. They're going to bring this whole new set of potential genre to Japan. And this is effectively going to kickstart what is going to end up kind of being a little bit of a Japanese Renaissance in a little while. But one of the things that becomes very popular during the Asuka period is poetry, and especially even poetry written by the emperors. And if you look at one of the biggest collections of Japanese poetry, it's called the Manyoshu. And in the Manyoshu, it's this giant collection of hundreds and hundreds of poems. There are lots of poems attributed to the emperors from this period of time because it was seen as not only as a sign of your intelligence, but as a sign of your sort of genteel qualities, that you could produce beautiful works of art and rule at the same time. That you were this sort of well-rounded individual that had capacity in lots of different areas, right? So this is going to be a period of time where the imperial power of Japan is really going to step up a level. And it's going to become the center of a lot of stuff, but that's also going to make it a little bit more precarious, right? The higher you get up in the tree, the more the wind is going to blow you, right? And this is, of course, going to carry over into our next couple of periods. Isn't it easier to just pay a ghostwriter to pretend to write poems for you? As the emperor, you could have done that. You could have done that fairly easily. It probably would have been frowned upon, though. You want to write your own poems, and you want to show your own mastery of the language. And you can still go read a lot of these. Again, if you want to read it, the particular book, it's called the Manyoshu. And you can go find that. If you just Google that, you can find the whole thing for free in translation on the internet right now. So that is a look at Asuka period Japan. It's one of my favorite periods of Japanese history because there's just a lot of stuff going on. You really start seeing the foundations laid down for what will be imperial policy later on. You start seeing a lot more of the cultural elements that are being sort of folded into the larger batch of dough that is Japanese culture. You start seeing a lot more of this sort of social change and cultural motion that I really like learning about. Not woman Yoshu. No, not woman Yoshu. Manyoshu. Of course, the word man in Japanese does not mean the same thing as it does in English. So, but there are a lot of poems in the Manyoshu written by women, including some by some of the empresses. So this was not necessarily something that was blocked by gender. I'm just explaining the joke and making it horrible. That's what's one of my things. I knew you were joking from the get-go. But it is remarkable and worth mentioning that women during this period of time were able to write, and their written word and poetry was considered worthy enough to put into big collections with the writing of men. So not an insubstantial point to make. All right. So at that point, I am wrapped up with what I wanted to do. But as always, if you all have additional questions, or if you wanted to redeem anything or anything like that, now would be the time to do so while I go look to see who we can raid. Let's see who is screaming. The standard question book. All right. Last time we did the standard question book, I got a really easy one, so maybe we'll get another really easy one. This is the standard question book and home study outlines. Once again, it is a book of questions that was supposed to be a study guide for a college course that you did by mail. I don't have the rest of the college course. I just have the book. So it's a book full of questions, and what we do here is open up to a page. We did the early, and then we did the end. Let's do the middle. I know we did. Let's do one on this page. So I'm just gonna kind of like go right here, up at the top. What are you? All right. So here we have a question that I do not know the answer to. When and by whom was Orlando Furioso written? State what kind of poetry it is, its theme, its characteristics, and its popularity, who is Ginevra? I don't know. So we are actually going to get to go to the full screen here, and we're going to get to go on a bit of a learning curve. So when and by whom was Orlando Furioso written? Okay, so here we go. Orlando Furioso, the Frenzy of Orlando, more literally Raging Roland, is an Italian epic poem by Ludovico Ariosto, which has exerted a wide influence on later culture. The earliest version appeared in 1516, although the poem was not published until its complete form in 1132. All right, so who wrote it? It was written by Ludovico Ariosto. When was it written? 1532. What kind of poetry is it? It is an epic poem. What is its theme? Background of the war between Christian Emperor Charlemagne and the Saracen King of Africa. Duty to protect the emperor because of his love for pagan princess Angelica. Oh, so this is a good story of chivalry and abandonment of duty and traitorous Saracens. Huh, this actually sounds pretty interesting. Ooh, I'm not supposed to show that because that's got... I just saw that had the bobas on it. I'm not supposed to show the bobas on stream. Who is Ginevra? I don't know who Ginevra is. We're going to have to Google who is Ginevra. Ginevra. Who is the story of Ginevra from Orlando Furioso. So maybe it's G-I-N. All right, let's go back to this and try it with G-I-N. Ginevra. But who is this person? She's apparently... she's a daughter of the King of Scotland. There we go. Apparently she plays some role in this larger situation. Okay, cool. There we go. You had not seen me in a bit, and you were busy part of the week, so over abstract of trip experience. The trip was great. We got most of the research that we needed, and I am currently in the process of trying to write up a paper from part of that research. He was furious. Florida poetry written in Orlando. Yeah, Ginevra is a fictional character from Warhammer. There we go. Raging Roland. The earliest version appeared in 1516. Yes. I'm going to have to read that, actually. This is a really weird multi-part question. Orlando Furioso is a pretty cool name. That really is. Pretty cool. I'm actually sort of interested in reading that now. I might have to go find that and give it a once-over. So that was the standard question book. We never really know what we're going to get. I don't know the answers to all of the questions in it as indicated by that. So it can be a lot of stuff. So It's not always just the easiest thing to do. All right. Dun, 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 dun. So there's that. I think I know where we're gonna go raid. But anybody else have any questions or last minute throw in things or redemption things or such or stuff? Otherwise, we're just going to hit the raid button. Ugh. I am pretty tired. And I've had a long day. We good? Okay, cool. We're going to go raid one of my friends that has not streamed in a while, and I have not seen him stream in a while, to be able to go raid him. So we're going to go raid the Incredible Hunk live. Summer is your busiest time at work. It is my least busy time at work. So we are ships crossing in the night. But it's good to see you too, Tropical. I hope that you're doing well, even if work is busy. All right, so we're going to go see Hunk. He's a cool guy. He's doing some oil painting stuff. Give him some love when we get there. Shout adventure, and if you have those lovely adventure hat emotes, you can throw those in the chat. The next time that you will definitely see me is on Tuesday next week. We will be doing a special viewer request stream for my lovely, lovely wife as part of her birthday on the period of Reconstruction in the United States. Next week on Thursday is Korean history. If you want to know more about all of this stuff and hang out with us, click there on the Discord and give it a join. We'd be happy to have you and goof off and share memes with you. But until then, I'll see you around. I hope I get to do some Gundam stuff over the weekend, but I can't promise. Got a lot of stuff going on. But anyway, take it easy. Take care of yourselves. Hope that you're having a good one. And I'll see you next time.